All right, so let's talk about investing for beginners, right? Because at some point in our lives, everyone is a beginner at everything, right? Whether it's walking or riding a bike or learning to cook or learning to read. But the purpose of this video is going to be being a beginner in investing, right? I started investing about a decade ago. I was in my teens. I was lucky enough to have someone really close to me who worked in finance and who worked in the world of investments. So he kind of exposed me to all of it at an early age, and I was hooked immediately. I just felt like the ability to earn more money with the money that you already have, it just kind of blew my mind. It almost felt like cheating, right? It almost felt like I was doing something wrong, but I realized it's just taking advantage of what you have and making the most of it and being resourceful and efficient. And I think learning to invest is something that everyone should do. It doesn't necessarily have to be super complicated. I'm not saying you have to look at 20 screens that all have different charts on it or anything of that nature. But I think it's something that anyone and everyone can learn, and everyone and anyone should learn, right? Because it helps build wealth. It helps build sort of a safety net, both financially, but also mentally, that it's hard to get, that feeling from something else. But, just think of waking up one day and you have a couple $1 million in an account, just sitting there paying dividends. You're still working your job. You still go, work your 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be, but you have this sort of safety net, that if shit hits the fan, you still have that to rely on. So think of yourself in that position versus living paycheck to paycheck, having absolutely nothing in savings and investments, and being forced to work a job that you do not want to work just to make ends meet. That just sounds miserable to me. That's one of the reasons why I take investing very seriously, is because I don't want to be stuck in the 9 to 5 lifestyle for the rest of my life, or I at least want to have the ability to leave it if I want to, or if I'm not happy with my position, or my certain situation. So that's why I take it so seriously, and that's why I talk about it so much, because I think it's really important to understand and to learn. And there's a lot of benefits to investing. So let's talk about this. If I were a beginner in 2026, just starting to invest, like what's the plan? How do you get started? Because I know there's a lot that goes into it, and someone who's never looked into it before, it may be overwhelming. So first of all, I want to answer a few questions. Like, what's the goal of investing, right? The goal is to make money. That's it. That's at the end of the day. I'm not trying to make a positive impact here, or I'm not trying to, finesse the system. I'm just trying to make money. That's it. That's why I invest, right? Goes back to what I just said. I want to get to a position where I don't have to answer to anyone. I want to have enough invested that I can live off of. So at the end of the day, the goal is to make money. Now, what's the timeline? Well, I'll tell you this. If your timeline is anything less than a year, you should probably find another way to make money. You're probably going to make more money getting a second job and working that for a year than just investing for a year and expecting to make thousands of dollars, right? The timeline should be long term. You should have years, if not decades, in mind when you start to invest. This should be something that you're planning on reaping the benefits of 10 to 20 to 30 years down the line, not 1 to 2 to 3 months down the line. That's while people do make investments in quote unquote trades, that go anywhere from 1 day to 3 months to 1 year. It's just riskier. You don't necessarily have the historical data to back up your investments. Now, that's not to say you don't make money doing that. Like I've made investments where I bought into a stock and within a few months I was up 50% or even 100%. Like I've definitely had that before, but to rely on that and to make that your sole strategy, I don't necessarily know if that's smart. To each their own. You do you. Sometimes you have to learn lessons the hard way, but I've been burned by that strategy before, and I would not recommend it to someone who's brand new. So then the question becomes, well, what is the strategy then? In my opinion, if you are new to investing, I quite literally think you should invest in one thing. And this is not financial advice. I am not an advisor. I'm not a financial planner. This is just what I believe, my personal opinion. I think if you were to just invest in the S&P 500 consistently every week or month, whenever you get paid every 2 weeks, if you just consistently do that for years, you're probably going to end up in a good position down the line. Now, the S&P 500 is basically just a basket that holds the 500 largest companies in the US. So rather than having to go in and buy stock in Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, like one at a time, you can just buy the S&P 500, or what we call an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund that holds all those 500 companies. So my favorite is VOO. That's Victor Oscar Oscar. That's Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF. That's the one I invest in. So every time I buy a share, I'm literally buying a small piece of the 500 largest companies in the US. So I think if you just simply invest in the S&P 500 for years, you will come out on the other end in the positive, and probably in a lot better shape than you might think. So that's just to get started, right? That'll get you learning how to actually invest, what the process looks like. If you want to begin to branch out and learn more about different investment opportunities, different stocks, different ETFs, different strategies, that's fine. But the point of this video is to talk about how to get started as a beginner in 2026. And I think investing in the S&P 500, or if you need a specific example, the one I use is VOO. Again, not financial advice. This is just what I do. That is probably how I would get started if I was a beginner, but I knew what I know now. So then next, let's talk about risks, right? The thing with investing is you don't really know what's going to happen, right? You could buy a stock and it could go down the next day. You could buy a stock and it could go up the next day, right? So there's risks and rewards that come along with it. And there's also risks that you may not think of, right? I could buy one stock. Maybe let's create a hypothetical, right? I'm looking at two different companies that I want to invest in. Maybe I invest in one, and then over the next month, the other one ends up doubling in price. So maybe the one I bought is up 10%, which is great, but the other one that I could have bought was up 100%. So I lost out on all that profit, right? But it could have been the other way around. I could have bought that other one, and then that only went up 10%, and the one that I did buy, or hypothetically in this situation didn't buy, that one could have went up 100%. So there's always risks, right? You don't know. No one knows exactly what's going to happen tomorrow unless they have insider information. So there's risks and there's rewards to this. And I think when you try to complicate things, that's when things get riskier. I think keeping it simple and investing in the broad market for a while, just to kind of get your hands on things and learn how to invest. In my opinion, I think that is the best strategy, and that's what I would do if I was starting over in 2026. And again, my go-to for probably the first investment I think should be in everyone's portfolio is the S&P 500. There's a number of ETFs that track it. VOO is the one that I use. But yeah, so what are the steps, right? I've kind of talked a little bit about like the goal, the timeline, strategies, risks, rewards, but what are the actual steps? How do we do this? Well, number one, I think you should get out of bad debt first. If you have credit card debt and other high interest debt, I wouldn't even focus on investing. I would focus on getting rid of that debt first, because unless you're earning more on your investment than you're paying in interest on that debt, it doesn't make any sense. It's a wash. Like, let's say you have 10%, or let's say, scratch that. Let's say your credit card has 20% interest on it, right? So you're paying 20% interest on your credit card debt. You need to make at least 20% per year on your investment in order to even break even. That's hard to do. You have to be a pretty good investor, or you have to be lucky, or both. So I would say get rid of your bad debt, pay off your credit cards and any other high interest debt that you have. The next thing you have to do is open an investment account. So that's going to be an IRA or a brokerage account. There's different rules to both of these, so make sure you look into that. But that's the next step, is to actually open an account. After that, you have to connect your bank account to that investment account. So let's say you open up an account with Charles Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard or M1 Finance, Robinhood, whatever brokerage account you opened. You'll log into that app, and then there's a spot to connect your checking account or a savings account or some sort of bank account to that new investment account. Once you connect them, you'll transfer the money in. Now, this is where a lot of people mess up. They think you just transfer the money in and then you're good. That's not the case. You actually have to invest the money. So that's when you start to buy stocks or, again, in my opinion, ETFs, right? VOO. Then once you do that, the final step, be patient. Be patient and be consistent. Continue to invest. Be patient. Don't sell if the market drops. If the market drops drastically, I buy more. Like, as bad as it might sound, I kind of like when the market goes down because it allows me to buy stocks and ETFs and invest in companies at a cheaper price. Like, call me selfish, but again, at the end of the day, I'm in this to make money. So when the market goes down, I'm a buyer. I'm not a seller. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you guys today. I wanted to keep this video pretty simple because I could get really into the details with everything, but I want to give you guys sort of a strategy that I would take and then the steps to actually implement it if I was to be a beginner investor in 2026 and how I would actually get started. So I hope this helps. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop in the comments below, or if you want me to make a video elaborating on anything I've discussed today, feel free to go ahead and comment that. I'm happy to do that for you guys. So, hey, listen, if you're new here, I post every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and then on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I post all kinds of content about personal finance, life experiences, really anything I feel like talking about. I just talk about it and throw it over some gameplay. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.